Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as usual, let's go over the market. Today, of course, is the final day of the week, and don't forget Monday is a holiday, so the market is closed on Monday, so it's a long weekend again. So next week, of course, will be a shorter week. But all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, as usual, if you enjoyed the video, find it useful, informative, helpful, whatever, don't forget to hit that like button. Again, this is not financial advice. Everything I say is not financial advice. Make your own decisions, do your own research, blah blah blah. But moving into a Tesla, ending the day down actually just about 1%, which puts us at $122.37 compared to the market itself. Definitely an underperformance, but nothing completely out of the ordinary or like major, I guess. You know, it's definitely not underperformance, but nothing I would be like too concerned about or anything like that, right? So all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, so jumping into a Tesla, as you can see, pretty much a similar day as to what we had. I think it was even yesterday, where we pretty much start off the day really low, pretty much more or less exactly like today, and then we essentially rallied up throughout the whole day. Literally the same situation on pretty much the same volume as well as yesterday, more or less. It's just in this case we actually started lower as opposed to here where we started up here, went down, and then back up, right? But the idea is somewhat similar. So all in all, this is what I'm kind of seeing for Tesla, right? So, you know, I'm not gonna lie, the morning issue, the reason Tesla dropped in the morning mainly was because they did reduce prices in North America by like, you know, quite a fair amount actually. It was a pretty decent reduction in price, which short term can be painful. Long term, I think it's a phenomenal idea and move. But that is why Tesla opened the day up down like 5 or 6% or whatever it was in the morning, to which I ended up selling a put against, and I sold one more just before the market closed because it's a long weekend, right? But all that being said, so Tesla essentially is finding itself in a, still in a fairly peculiar position where we're potentially inside this little, you know, wedge, if you will. You could argue this is like a little bit of a bull wedge or some shit, right? You know, you can technically make the argument something like this, right? Easily make the argument that it's like a little bull flag or bull wedge, whatever. And yeah, so we'll see where this takes us. Now, the main thing to keep in mind with this, of course, is in order for the bulls in this case, right, that if they want to actually see Tesla finally get out of this range and finally move up to, let's say, 140, which is still my ultimate price target, roughly, right, give or take. It doesn't have to be exactly 140. It could be slightly more, slightly less, give or take, right? You really want to see a push up above this 123 level, and you really want to see it hold, man. Like pretty much the same thing I've been saying for a long time, right? That is essentially the make it or break it level. If we cannot push above that level and start holding, similar to what we did yesterday, but like I said yesterday, you know, it's a good start, but it's not, you know, enough. And what we need to see is follow through. Obviously, we didn't see that today. We did see a good recovery, but it's not necessarily a follow through, right? Follow through would have implied that we essentially maybe went down a tiny bit and then ultimately went back up, or at the very least held this level without going back under 123 or something like that, right? That would have been, in my opinion, a follow through. We didn't get that today, which is unfortunate. However, the fact that we did recover means that the bulls, I guess, aren't done just yet. However, also, with that being said, the more times we come up to the zone and the more times we fail, the less convincing it'll start getting, because it's just showing that the bulls just really don't have the strength to push through this just yet. So keep that in mind as well. So if we're going to be pushing through it, it would need to happen. In all honesty, I really want to see it happen Tuesday. And I do think Tuesday we'll see whether or not we're going to push through this and actually go up to 140, or if this 123-ish level is actually just going to serve as a major resistance and we're ultimately going to fall back down to about 110 first. And then maybe we'll start heading up a way back up to like maybe 140, 135, something like that, right? Now, we'll talk about both situations. So for the bulls, if we break this level, right, again, I personally still believe that, you know, the ultimate test of this upper trend line is still very much in play if we break 123-ish and actually start holding it, right? That to me is still very much in play. However, for the bears, they really want to see, essentially, honestly, you really want to be seeing like this kind of, you know, one kind of 17-ish level really start to crack and, you know, really start to fall through and go underneath this little wedge, if you will, that we are currently within, right? That would be what the bears want to see. And if that happens, and if we break this kind of, you know, 117, 118 level, I do strongly believe that we will most likely come down to about 110. But then I personally believe there's a decent chance that we will be setting up a potential inverted head and shoulders. Now, this to me, honestly, I feel like is a slightly more likely outcome right now, mainly because we do have a little bit of a bearish divergence on the 1 hour setting up as well, right? So that's something to definitely consider, which isn't really what you want to be seeing in this exact situation, in all honesty, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if it's really hard to tell right here because it's impossible to tell for sure what will happen next. It's just a matter of which level breaks first, right? And you kind of react to it as it happens, right? But again, the main levels is 123 for the bulls and about, essentially breaking out of this wedge, which around, 117, let's just say 118, 117, something like that for the bears. And then again, come down to 110-ish, right? And then most likely bounce off of this area, potentially set up this inverted head and shoulders. And I still think this will most likely make us come back up to about that 35, 140 level. Don't forget, guys, the longer it takes to get there, the lower the upper range target or price target will be, right? Mainly because, of course, this descending little yellow line, if you will, of course, as the days progress, it is going lower and lower and lower, right? So the target gets lower and lower and lower. So that is, of course, something to consider. So we'll see if that actually ends up coming to fruition or if it does not. So that is, of course, just up to time, really. But that is kind of what I'm seeing for Tesla. There's really not a whole lot more to update than, the things that I've already said on prior days, mainly because we're just essentially... we're essentially just trading inside this range for the past, several days now, right? So it's more or less the same story still, right? You can see the 21 EMA is still just right above us, not too far away, right? Sitting around 130. We have, of course, the the Bollinger Band, which, of course, we're essentially getting resisted by the white line at the very moment. So we'll see what that comes into as well. And, of course, we're still actually just barely holding above the 5 and the 10-day moving average. So it's just a battle of the bulls and the bears in this situation of just consolidation. And this next move should give us either a push all the way down to about 110 or a push all the way back up to maybe 135 to 140, something like that. Is what I essentially see. But again, you want to wait for those levels to break that I mentioned, and that's really, really important. Now, to further talk about this, we also have, of course, SPY, right? Now, looking at the daily actually first very quickly, you can see, and I did talk about this many times, how personally, I believe 400, which we're pretty much there, right? Maybe a little bit more room to the upside, but really not a whole lot more. I am personally going to be considering entering some puts on SPY, probably on Tuesday. I didn't enter it today because I don't want any... I don't want to lose days just to theta, mainly because it's a long weekend. So we lose Monday as well to theta, right? I don't want to lose that day for no reason. So I'll personally be looking to enter probably some hedges and puts on SPY, most likely on Tuesday. Of course, we'll see what happens, right? So that is something I'm personally considering and looking into as well. But you can see the SPY is in essentially this little ascending wedge, right? Which, is bullish as it happens, but it's a bearish, end result usually, where you usually just end up falling back out. Now, just because we fall out doesn't mean it's a bad thing, right? For instance, we can fall out, we can just make a higher low ultimately on the trend itself, potentially in this little macro or micro-ish time frame, and we can just bounce up even further and finally break the 400 and break this overall downtrend. That's not impossible, right? So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, right? So in theory, you can argue that maybe we'll come down to somewhere around this gap fill, which will be around 390, maybe even as low as 385, right? Any of these levels are, of course, valid options, and to still overall be in this little micro-ish uptrend that we are in on SPY. Obviously, the overall, macro is downtrend, but the micro is this small little uptrend that we are currently in, being this little situation, right, that we find ourselves in right here, right now. So, yeah, guys, that's kind of what I'm seeing at the very moment, right? So not a whole lot more to update. The TSLQ, you can see, arguably setting up a bull flag here, you can kind of make the argument that this is a bit of a kind of a potential bull flag, right? It's not out of the equation at all. So we'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We will absolutely see. I do think if Tesla breaks out and comes up to, let's say 135, this will potentially make this just come down to the bottom part of this little situation where we find ourselves in right here as well, which will pretty much put us down another 5%, and 5% on Tesla will bring us up to around 130, which is not a whole lot. So I don't know, man. It's a pretty peculiar situation that we find ourselves in, but this is definitely not something you want to ignore, because again, whatever happens to this happens to the opposite of Tesla. So this is literally just a straight up inverse of Tesla. So just keep that in mind. This is very important to consider. Of course, we also have the VIX to consider, which is looking quite weak. I will admit this thing is looking substantially weak, which is usually a decent time to enter puts, because puts are just overall cheaper because the volatility is just so down. So that's something else to consider as well. But yeah, all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think down below. Hope you have a great long weekend to the market itself. Yeah, and I guess if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys for the next one. Peace.